missed the race, and I think this is the start of maybe the fourth race. It appears we're getting close. I see the flags are up, but once again we see Rick and we see David Spira here approaching the gang on port. We see a lot of the group at the weather end of the committee boat. Again, if it's a leeward end favored, this is a difficult place to get down to the leeward end of the line from. Plus, it kind of removes all your options. And I'm not sure of the timing here, so I apologize, but just using this as an example, notice how Rick just tacked here. This would be your classic port tack approach, and I think it looks really nice. I'm assuming it's a leeward end favored. Here's Ryan. So it must be. We're going to watch how Ryan here stops the boat. Notice how he's working real hard to park the boat, hold this spot. Jib's luffing. He's kind of letting the boat to weather get a little closer. He's trying to open up this hole to leeward, which is important. There's a start. There's a start. Oop, there he is. Notice a big hole to leeward. Great position. And as long as he can tack and take advantage of the first shift, he's in great shape. But that's what it's all about at the start, is hitting that first shift. David came through on port and decided to line up here in the weather third, and I think he's sort of thinking that it's a weather third favorite, so we'll take a look at how he ends up. He's up in there to weather 5210. You can see him. Sure enough, the breeze went a little bit further to the left, as we see by Rick out here, and Ryan is in great shape on a nice lefty here, coming out of here in a good spot. Okay, we're watching the boats here sailing in on port, going in the ley line. First thing I'd like to suggest is try to keep the boats as flat as you can. The flatter the better, the less helm you have, the harder you can trim the sails and go higher and faster. You can see here that Rick and David are doing a nice job, and the blue boat to weather David is doing a good job, and you can actually get a sense of the pointing ability that's coming as a result. So flat is good, neutral helm is important here. We can see a difference here. We can see helm. We can see the tillers being pulled on. We can see the drag behind the rudder. So again, trying to keep the boat flat is really key. Ryan's coming around here with a nice lead. So again, just to reiterate on what we talked about going into the weather mark, trying to tack in on port. Similar to what we see here, maybe not quite so close, but again, it gives us the opportunity to call the ley line a lot easier and a lot clearer air. All right, Ryan's around, sailing off on port. Trying to get a shot here of the bottom mark rounding. We'll watch Rick here as he approaches. We want to try to make it wide on this side and tight on the other. One thing I might suggest trying is to keep that jib ease as we go around, so we can come around nice and tight. Let the bow come up. So ideally, we want to be wide on this side, then tight right here, right there, so we can go up close hauled. And what I suggest again is keeping the jib ease as we go around. There we go, 5210 did a nice job. I don't know if you can see through here, the jib was nice and eased. There it is, just barely coming in now, and that's really valuable. There we go, a little wider on this side, so actually we would be coming out into here, making the turn down low, and then come up next to the mark. We can see the difference here in how we slide off to leeward if we come in too close. Brian and Jen here have a nice lead. We see some of the guides we talked about with the spinnaker halyard being off the top of the mast. Bet you we'll see that center seam being parallel to the mast here from behind. There it is. There you can see kind of a tough angle, but you get the gist here. What we're looking at, there's a curl on the left of the spinnaker that Jen's carrying in it. Looks good. Here we go. There's the center seam parallel to the mast. That's perfect. And from here we can see the two ends are even. As we bear off around the top mark, keep that jib end tight so that'll pull the bow down. And then when you ease the main out, the boat will bear off just fine. So keep that jib end tight so you don't have to use much rudder, and let the boat steer all by itself. Very little rudder is needed then. That was good. That was good. Maybe a little tighter on the jib until actually the spinnaker is up. Here's Rick going around. Again, maybe just a little tighter on the jib as the boat bears off, but this is good. This is nice. These guys did a nice job, and if you look, they're quite a bit lower than the rest of the group in front of them, which is nice. That's what we're trying to do, is maintain that inside position so that we can jibe first if we want to. Alright, here's a little bit of sail trim stuff looking at David, Spira, and Dennis. First thing we see is the slot is exactly symmetrical. The exit of the jib, the entry of the main is just right. We see those overbend wrinkles in here, which is telling us that the mast is bending nicely. That's perfect. That's what we want to see. We see the outhaul is nice and tight. Remember we talked about not making that the spot where you want the sail to be full. We could imagine if there's extra depth right there, how that would make the slot too narrow. We can see, if you look closely, you can see the two telltales are breaking even. Jib's nice and even and open at the top. David's trimming the main tight enough that the top telltale is stalled. That's great. Cunningham's E, so the draft is back. Leech has a little bit of return right in here, which means hook, which is good for flat water like this. Nice smooth slow tack. Good tack. Notice how Dennis has the jib eased out. David has eased the main out a little bit. We see that telltale flowing up top now because he's in first gear. That looks good. Very nice. That's beautiful. Now, as we notice here, how flat David and Dennis are sailing the boat, as evidenced by the tiller straight down the center line. The wake is flat. The wake being flat tells us that there's no drag on the rudder. That is key. Very nice. Excellent. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day.